Travel along, Catholic pilgrims, as we learn from St. Augustine, Doctor of the Church, while we read his book, Confessions. Hello, Catholic pilgrims, and welcome back. Today's reading is so rich, and I really encourage you, after our reading, to sit with it and meditate on it. Definitely come back to it. It took me just a bit of time to fully understand what St. Augustine is saying, but once you do, his words are very good to use for an examination of conscience. We will be reading from Book 1, Chapter 18, so let's go ahead and turn to page 38. But was it surprising that I was lured into these fruitless pastimes and wandered away from you, my God? I was expected to model myself upon men who were disconcerted by the rebukes they received if they used outlandish words or strange idioms to tell of some quite harmless thing they might have done, but reveled in the applause they earned for the fine flow of well-ordered and nicely balanced phrases with which they described their own acts of indecency. You see all these things, Lord, and yet you keep silence, because you are patient and full of compassion and can tell no lie. Will you be silent forever? This very day you are ready to rescue from this fearsome abyss any soul that searches for you, any man who says from the depths of his heart, I have eyes only for you. I long, Lord, for your presence. For the soul that is blinded by wicked passions is far from you and cannot see your face. The path that leads away from you and brings us back again is not measured by footsteps or milestones. The prodigal son of the Scriptures went to live in a distant land to waste in dissipation all the wealth which his father had given him when he set out. But to reach that land, he did not hire horses, carriages, or ships. He did not take to the air on real wings or set one foot before the other. For you were the Father who gave him riches. You loved him when he set out, and you loved him still more when he came home without a penny. But he set his heart on pleasure, and his soul was blinded. And this blindness was the measure of the distance he traveled away from you, so that he could not see your face. O Lord, my God, be patient, as you always are, with the men of this world as you watch them and see how strictly they obey the rules of grammar which have been handed down to them, and yet ignore the eternal rules of everlasting salvation which they have received from you. A man who has learnt the traditional rules of pronunciation or teaches them to others gives greater scandal if he breaks them by dropping the H from human being than if he breaks your rules and hates another human, his fellow man. This is just as perverse as to imagine that our enemies can do us more harm than we do to ourselves by hating them, or that by persecuting another man we can damage him more fatally than we damage our own hearts in the process. O God, alone in majesty, high in the silence of heaven, unseen by man, we can see how your unremitting justice punishes unlawful ambition with blindness. For a man who longs for fame as a fine speaker will stand up before a human judge, surrounded by a human audience, and lash his opponent with malicious invective, taking the greatest care not to say human instead of human by a slip of the tongue. And yet the thought that the frenzy in his own mind may condemn a human being to death disturbs him not at all. Well, I'm glad St. Augustine brings up how wrong it is to drop the H from human, because I absolutely cannot stand it when people do that. You can drop it from the word herb, but not from human. Oh, the rules. The rules. You know, I'm a big believer in following the rules, for the most part, unless they are stupid and are being done just for the rule's sake. If the rule has a real purpose that makes sense, yes, let's follow the rules. But if not, let's toss it. I'll give you an example. My active duty husband works at a place that is not located on a military installation. And one day my husband pulled up in front of his building and couldn't park in his normal place, which is right in front of the building. Instead, there was a bunch of orange cones sitting in several parking spots and a sign that let it be known that this was a DoD building and that they were on high alert for possible attacks. The cones were there to prevent anyone from getting too close and setting off a bomb. So my husband, being the commander, drove up, got out of his car, moved the cones, parked, took down the sign, walked inside, and said, "Get people to move their cars back into the spaces up front." And the civilians in the building were like, "What are you doing? These are the rules." And my husband said, "Our cars are a better barrier than plastic cones. And by putting up a sign, you've just told the world that we are a military office. Normally, there is nothing identifiable outside this building. But when we are supposed to be on high alert, we draw more attention to ourselves? No, these are stupid rules." To which his deputy said, "Wow, I've been here for years and no commander has ever questioned that. But yeah, you're right. They're stupid." St. Augustine shows us here today that as humans, we are often more concerned about worldly rules than we are about God's eternal rules. We will make sure to use correct grammar sometimes, but use our words to speak words of hatred to our fellow man. We will follow traffic rules to try to keep us and other people safe, but we will condemn a man to hell, which is forbidden by God. Just recently, I wrote about baptism, as someone asked me to do that. Somewhere it got shared on some Protestant page, and boy, did they come over to my page in full force. They believed that they had the rules of the Bible correct on baptism. They don't completely, but they were so uncharitable in their delivery that they forgot God's command to love one another. I had to delete some people's comments because of the vitriol. Now, this isn't to say that we as Catholics are always paragons of charity. We aren't. Even with each other, we can be awful. I can't tell you how many times I get Catholics worried about rules. Rules, mind you, that aren't ever laid down by the church, that come on my page to be uncharitable. This is why I want us to meditate on what St. Augustine is saying here. We all struggle with this. We all do. I do. We all do. And we need to make sure that we aren't more attentive to man-made rules than we are to God's rules and the church's rules. Some man-made rules are good and necessary, but some are pointless or burdensome, as the example of my husband's work rules shows. I think this is something that would be really good to use to examine our own lives. That is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. We are almost at the end of Book 1. Can you believe it? But we have 2 more readings to go until then. But until next time, live the faith boldly and travel well.